Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 189. Story Horizon. Part 1. On this day, everyone in Seoul Dome was immersed in a dazzling light. Someone has cleared the 10th main scenario. Congratulations. You have passed the 10th scenario. Those who were hiding in corners of Seoul Dome to avoid the demonic people and those who barely survived on the first and second floors of Dark Castle. All the incarnations who somehow survived the threat of the scenario received the same message. You have accomplished the Liberator of Seoul Dome achievement. Liberator. People didn't understand it at first, but their bodies were convinced before their minds. Their limbs cramped, their pupils expanded, and their lips trembled. You can escape Seoul Dome. Their long wish had finally become reality. The people on the first and second floors of Dark Castle were summoned out into the city. Then everyone saw the same sight. The Dark Castle collapsed with a loud sound. The terrible nightmare gripping all of Seoul collapsed like a sand castle. The broken chunks soon turned into powder. People were filled with unknown emotions as they watched the scene. It is finished, someone said. I can go out. I can live now, the hell is over. Some people felt it was the end of the tragedy. Compensation poured from the air. People had jubilant expressions on their faces. Another tragedy might begin, but for now, they were enjoying the immediate feeling of liberation. However, not everyone shared that sentiment. What happened to Dokja Juicy? Kim Dokja's group escaped from Dark Castle. Young Hee-won, Lee Hyun-sung, Lee Jae-hai, Gong Pil-do, Lee Gil-young, Shin Yu-sung, Han Soo-young. All of them were gathered in one place. They were those who survived because of Kim Dokja or those who owed Kim Dokja. Anyone, does anyone know? Please say something. Master. How is Dokja Juicy? The party members relied on their intuition to find someone who could explain the situation. However, the only person who could answer was silent. Yoo Jong-hyuk was staring at the collapsed Dark Castle with his mouth shut. Dark Castle collapsed, like history disappearing. Kim Dokja was in there. He died there. Yoo Jong-hyuk stared while confirming the fact over and over again. Kim Dokja was dead. How could such a thing happen? Yoo Jong-hyuk was unfamiliar with not knowing. Yoo Jong-hyuk SSI. Please say something. Please. Yoo Jong-hyuk stared blankly at Lee Hyun-sung, who was shaking him. The first regression and second regression, he had never seen Lee Hyun-sung make this face. Yoo Jong-hyuk rarely remembered the expressions that his party members made when they lost someone really precious. It was because he was always the one making such expressions. He was the only one who survived until the end of this tragedy and despair. By the way, this life was different. There were still many people by his side. He was suffering through someone's death with them. Yoo Jong-hyuk SSI. Master. Everyone was staring at him. They wanted him to say that it wasn't too late. Still, Yoo Jong-hyuk couldn't give an answer to these faces. I also don't know. He destroyed their last remaining hope. Sadly, this was the role left to Yoo Jong-hyuk. I don't know what happened to Kim Dokja. In fact, he could tell them more. Banishment from the scenario. He could share the information he knew. Or maybe he could testify to the feeble hopes he might have. However, Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't do this. He knew that talking about it would just be telling the party members. Kim Dokja is dead. You can't do anything for Kim Dokja. Some people said more by not speaking. A few people accepted Yoo Jong-hyuk's silence while others rejected it. Nevertheless, everyone understood the silence. Dr. Hyung said so. He isn't dead. He will live again. Then why? Yoo Jong-hyuk SSI. Please tell me how to save Dokja SSI. Yu Jong-hyuk shook his head at Lee Gil-young and Lee Hyun-sung's cries. If there was a way to save Kim Dok-jae, he would have already done it. There was nothing he could do. It wasn't just him, it was everyone. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, feels a great emptiness. The constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is lying down. The constellation, Coaeil pill, has broken his pen. The constellation, god of wine and ecstasy, is looking at the abyss. The constellations on the Korean peninsula are mourning the death of one constellation. The constellations on the Korean peninsula remember someone's name. Yu Jong-hyuk had never seen so many constellations talking about a single constellation. The arrogant constellations were expressing emotions other than frustration or pleasure. They became aware of new feelings. The night sky was shining with more color than any of his previous regressions. Sadness, great despair, sorrow. The night sky, made up of many constellations, was shining sadly. Maybe Kim Dok-jae was hope for them as well. It was hope to show a different story. Something that could make a difference in the star stream. There aren't many ways. Looking at the dazzling star in the sky, regressor Yu Jong-hyuk had a thought. If I regress now? The ability to restart his life was like the button of a nuclear missile that could be pressed at any time. Yu Jong-hyuk was able to go back in time after dying and make better choices with the information he had of the future. If he returned now, then Kim Dok-jae might revive again. However, Yu Jong-hyuk, wake up. Don't think things will improve if you repeat them a few times. What if Yu Jong-hyuk went back and there was no Kim Dok-jae? Or what if Kim Dok-jae didn't act like this again? Yu Jong-hyuk was afraid of something for the first time. The Kim Dok-jae of this life might only appear in this life. Shin Yu-sung of the 41st regression never talked about Kim Dok-jae, and he never met Kim Dok-jae in his past few lives. Even if he went back to the past, the Kim Dok-jae of this life might not return. Thus, live this round properly. The choice that had always been possible was now irreversible. He met Kim Dok-jae in his third regression and they became companions. Then he lost Kim Dok-jae. Don't imagine that you will get better if you throw away this round. Maybe this is the round where you will see the end of this world as a human. Yu Jong-hyuk got up from his spot and bit his lips. Only these words remained. Just as everything in the star stream was a story, Yu Jong-hyuk couldn't help acknowledging that Kim Dok-jae's words were part of himself. Huh, why aren't you moving? Didn't you receive the system message? The Dakibi dispatched from the bureau looked down at them from the air. Aha, I see. Everybody is mourning his death. The party members resented his ridiculing tone, but not everyone was the same. Young Hee-won barely maintained her calm and asked. How is Dok-jae SSI? He has been expelled from the scenario. Can I ask what that means? Is he dead or alive? I also don't know. However, it isn't possible to survive being expelled from the scenario, whether it is an incarnation or constellation. That is all I know. Even a constellation couldn't survive. The party members stiffened at the words, and their expressions became colder than before. Lee Jae-hai retorted. Isn't there a way? A way to save? There is nothing you can do. Honestly, it's amazing that you still have this type of mindset. I will give you one piece of advice. Don't think about unnecessary things, and focus on the scenario in front of you. You haven't escaped from Seoul Dome yet. The Dakibi sneered and flicked his fingers. Then messages once again poured from the air. The escape scenario has been given. Seoul Dome will be closed soon. You have half a day to escape from Seoul Dome. The escape path is automatically provided. You will die if you don't escape from the dome within the time limit. Damn it. The party members looked at each other, but there were no solutions on their faces. In any case, there was nothing they could choose. Let's move. They started to move along the specified path. They ran, swam or crossed railings as they constantly headed towards the outskirts of Seoul. Finally, the route markers ended and they faced a group of people. These people, all the remaining incarnations of Seoul Dome, were gathered there. There were approximately 1,000 people. Some faces were familiar. Min Jae-won waved her hand towards this side, and there was also the reclusive Han Dong-hoon. They were all saved by Kim Dok-jae. Yoo Jong-hyuk and the party members lightly nodded at the people they recognized. Here. The party members stopped at the same time and stared up at the inner wall of the dome. It was a huge cage that had been trapping them so far. Now they had a chance to escape from this prison. Everyone was excited, but nobody took a step outside. They were like a canary that couldn't easily fly out of the wide-open cage. Instead, the people were looking around for something. One by one, the gazes gathered. All eyes soon gathered on one person. It was Han Soo-young, who opened her mouth first. Yoo Jong-hyuk. Yoo Jong-hyuk faced Han Soo-young. She didn't say anything, but Yoo Jong-hyuk read her eyes. Don't waste the opportunity that Kim Dok-jae gave you. Yoo Jong-hyuk blinked slowly and stepped forward. Numerous people were waiting for him. It was to celebrate the moment they were finally freed. Yoo Jong-hyuk was troubled as he gazed at the group focused on him. Yoo Jong-hyuk had been in this position several times in his past lives. He was sometimes eloquent and sometimes a charismatic leader. It wasn't hard to find the words to give to the crowd. Then why? He didn't want to say such things this time. Instead, he said, "I won't give up on this life." Perhaps there was no one here who would understand his words. In the midst of the terrible loneliness that came from this face, Yoo Jong-hyuk declared, "So don't give up either." He didn't know if it had been delivered or not. Yoo Jong-hyuk turned away from the crowd and slowly walked to the inner wall of the dome. Then, bang! Just one. Bang! Then two. His angry fist struck the wall. Large cracks spread through the inner wall of the dome, centered on the point that was in contact with his fists. It was a wall that couldn't be overcome after the scenario started. The wall collapsed slightly, and a gap that was the size of a human was made. It was a landscape that always existed but couldn't be overcome. Yoo Jong-hyuk took the first step into that landscape. Let's go. He stepped towards a scenario without Kim Dok-jae. In the darkness, the lone Kim Dok-jae finally woke up. Chapter 190. Story Horizon. Part 2. The bones of the body seemed to be crushed and the skin was stiff, like a dead animal's skin. I listened to the fourth wall's words as I slowly woke up. The obnoxious voice of the fourth wall was now welcome. I am alive. Kim Dok-jae thought this. I heard fourth wall, so the plan seemed to be a success. In fact, I couldn't really say it was a success. It was natural. The fate they gave me was the death of incarnation Kim Dok-jae. It was natural that the constellation Kim Dok-jae wouldn't die. If I was going to disappear so easily, I wouldn't have built up my stories and become a constellation. The problem was that I lost my body and survived as a constellation. Where am I? The surrounding area was filled with ruined buildings and roads. It was a familiar scene. Not long after I spoke, I realized the situation I was in. I looked up at the air. The night sky had always been filled with the light of countless constellations. Now there was nothing there. I was surprised by the deep words I was speaking to myself. I watched the night sky and laughed blankly. Haha. Usually, numerous indirect messages from the constellations should have appeared. For example, the great sage, the equal of heaven, who liked it when I talked to myself, or the abyssal black flame dragon. There was also the demon-like judge of fire who liked me for some reason. It was normal for someone to answer, but no one answered my monologue. There wasn't the bald general of justice polishing his head, the one-eyed Mithraea who would throw his eye patch if he was bored, or the shameless lady of the brocade sleep. The messages of the constellations disappeared and only a laughably terrible loneliness was left behind. Kim Dokja thought, I'm really alone. You are currently expelled from the scenario. I slowly looked around the surroundings. Despite being expelled from the scenario, living beings would go to the nearest outside the scenario area. You are currently in an area outside the scenario. The outside the scenario area that I was currently standing in was a very familiar place to me. Seoul. This place was Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square. It was the place where War of the Kings took place, and I crushed the absolute throne. The fact that Seoul had become an area outside the scenario. The party members, thankfully, they escaped unharmed. I looked at the place where the former Seoul Dome was located and felt overwhelmed. The place that used to be covered with a translucent membrane was now covered by a thick barrier. Now the Seoul scenario was completely over. The party members were moving on to new scenarios without me and making new stories. From there, they would continue to live. Maybe this was how it turned out. Kim Dokja was glad but also somewhat lonely. I thought about the party members for a moment before slowly turning around. The lonely Kim Dokja had something to do. For that reason, he chose a miserable death. While walking on the streets of Seoul, Kim Dokja was immersed in his memories. Whenever he went, he saw where he performed the scenarios with his party members. Kim Dokja once again realized that he had become part of ways of survival. He was obviously living this story. This is very touching, but shouldn't you stop now? How long are you going to keep muttering? Kim Dokja was irritated by the poor fourth wall. At first, it felt good to have someone beside me. However, I didn't feel happy about having everything I did explained. How much time has passed? Kim Dokja wanted to ask but no one could answer. Damn it. You can answer me. I scolded him before deciding to look at my condition. Many of your stories have been damaged. Your current body is completely collapsed. I had survived by using my status as a constellation, but I had completely lost my physical body. In other words, my current existence wasn't flesh, but a mass of incomplete stories. Your current body is in a very dangerous condition. Methods to preserve your body can't be found. It was an uneasy state where I could completely collapse if anyone touched me. This wasn't living. I decided to try everything I could. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint isn't available in this area. As expected, it didn't work. You can't communicate with your incarnation. This also didn't work. I was expecting it, but I was really weird because it didn't work out. It felt like I was living alone in an area where no communication was possible. Of course, my actual situation was worse than that. You can't use the channel system. Since I was banished from the scenario, I naturally couldn't access the channel and my contract with Baihyung was cancelled. I stared at the sky without stars and felt empty freedom. Now I was really alone. Once I realized this fact, a chill started to creep in. Nobody sees me, and I can't see anyone either. No, I wasn't completely alone. In the midst of this, Kim Dokja suddenly realized. He felt a sense of existence through someone's eyes. I'm not thinking such philosophical things, idiot. Rather, how long are you going to keep this up? The stupid Kim Dokja doesn't know why the Great Fourth Wall is doing this hard work. What? Why can't you just explain? What the hell are you? You are a skill, right? The stupid Kim Dokja is talking to the air. It was a real jerk. Stupid Kim Dokja. Can't you stop? Do you want me to turn the skill off? Then a sound was heard in the air. The fourth wall asks, "Th and should I kt?" I was a bit surprised. This brat, it could express itself more clearly now? Come to think of it, last time. Yes, stop. I don't want to be bothered right now. The exclusive skill fourth wall is silent. The next moment, I regretted my choice. I felt the air around me freezing. It suddenly penetrated deeply into my bones. I felt the air in my lungs clogging up. Cough. At this moment, something belatedly came to my mind. It was the reason why Vedas and Olympus sent me to the outside the scenario area. It was due to this exact situation. It was a plot to kill Incarnation Kim Dokja and deal with Constellation Kim Dokja. K-Cook. I tried to scream but there was no sound. I could breathe, but I couldn't breathe. It felt as if someone had squeezed my lungs, and my breath was blocked. My head turned blank and my thoughts were erased one by one. The star stream was a world of stories. There were no exceptions, whether it was for incarnations or constellations. Every being existed through a story. The speed of the damage to your stories has increased. Your existence has started to vanish. In a place with no stories, nothing could exist. Even me. Damn, save me. I shouted while fearing that I would disappear. I could finally see why the fourth wall had such a big mouth. It kept speaking in order to save me. In a place where there were no stories, it kept me alive. It kept telling me stories. The exclusive skill fourth wall is activated. The fourth wall says, J-E-R-K. I managed to start breathing again. Pant, pant. I knew that being banished from this scenario was terrible, but I hadn't expected it to be this much. Indeed, even Chiak Jungyang couldn't survive outside the scenario without the help of a nebula. Damn, I thought too shallowly about the situation. I thought I could move on to the first target area somehow if I gave up a few stories. It would have been hard for me to live if it hadn't been for the fourth wall. Kim Dokja thought, I should never turn off the fourth wall again. I couldn't refute the words in my miserable mood. By the way, how long can you keep it up? The fourth wall says, No T Lon Ji. Intense sparks appeared as the fourth wall spoke. Indeed, it would be strange that the fourth wall could cope alone with something that required the probability of a nebula. I didn't have much time. If I couldn't finish my task in a timely manner, I would die here. At this moment, a noise was heard from somewhere. It was reminiscent of a vacuum cleaner. Kim Dokja knows what this is. Yes, I know. The scenario cleaners. The appearance of a cleaner meant a major cleanup of the scenario area had begun. Kim Dokja thought, since the cleaning has begun, the great demon of the horizon will soon reveal itself. The hyenas who wander through the ruins of the scenario can't afford to miss out on these delicious ruins. It was amazing to read. However, before I met them, I had to find something first. Kim Dokja picked up his pace. I staggered and gradually sped up. Things reminiscent of small clouds were wandering around the streets. They were the scenario cleaners. They were ones to watch out for, but I ran without worrying. In any case, the cleaners were low and their recognition range was narrow. If I carefully avoided them, it wouldn't be difficult to reach the target point without being noticed. I headed south of Gwanghwamun. Yuljiro, 3GA, Chunmuro, Dongdaegu, Yaksu, Gumho Station. Like a salmon, I passed by the places I had been. Finally, I arrived at Aksu Station. There, I faced the broken Dongo Bridge. I watched the broken bridge and memories passed through my head. This was the place where Yu Jonhyuk dropped me into the mouth of an ichthyosaur. I didn't know if he was doing well right now. Well, he had Han Suyong to help him. I had to hope. I leapt lightly across the broken bridge. In the past, it was a bridge that could only be crossed using Deus Ex Machina. Now a single leap was enough. It was a moment that showed how much had changed from the beginning of the scenario. However, I still had a long way to go. The things I had to cross were waiting for me at a distance much greater than the gap of this broken bridge. Finally, I reached a half-broken subway. This was the start of all the scenarios. I looked at the appearance of the subway before entering and looking through the ruins. How long did I look? I finally found what I was looking for. It was an item box that was shining white. There was a short message left on the item box. Kim Dokja, can I trust you? It was left as you requested. Thank you for being an incarnation of my channel. It was very obvious who wrote the message. Please, be alive. Of course. I wouldn't die. I opened the item box. The box contained 300,000 coins and the items I asked to be purchased. A new attribute has been acquired. The item Dakibi Egg has been acquired. The item Unbroken Faith has been acquired. I grabbed all the items and left the subway. That guy was coming in the nick of time. I sat on the bridge and waited. Soon, that guy would come. As I thought this, someone appeared on the horizon where the story ended. He was an old man with a giant lump on one cheek. He walked towards this side with a strange expression. It was like he knew I was here. Are you the Demon King of Salvation? I looked at him for a moment, before turning my gaze towards the light of dawn outside the dome. I thought of the nebulae that would be waiting for me beyond that light. Maybe they would think I was dead by now. Olympus, Vedas, Papyrus. I remembered every one of them. All the constellations who laughed at the stories of the incarnations and finally made their own entertainment. Just wait a little bit. I will pull all of you down from that fucking heaven. Chapter 191. Story Horizon. Part 3. This sentence appeared in Ways of Survival. The great demons who live in the horizon of the story. They aren't demon kings or demon species, they are great demons. They are those who hate the Dakibis as much as they seek and crave stories. Yes, this sentence. If you are expelled from the scenario, there is only one thing to look forward to. It is to hope for mercy from the great demon of the horizon. The fourth wall made it clear for me, and I had nothing to say. I looked at the great demon of the horizon. He gave off a very old impression. At first glance, I feel like a vagrant, but it wasn't hard to recognize them. It was because every great demon of the horizon had a big lump on their cheek. Due to that, some people called them the Weni Man. TL, when equals growth/swelling on the skin. Light sparks appeared in the air and the Weni Man stepped back. It is unusual. I can't see your information with the great demon's eyes. There was a yellow glow in the eyes of the Weni Man. It was an attempt to dig up my personal information. Great demon's eyes. Anna Croft had the same eyes as the Weni Man. It was natural. I'm sure that he was the one who gave Anna the information on the great demon's eyes. The great demons of the horizon were incomparably dangerous compared to Bai Hyung. I would be eaten if I underestimated him even a little bit. I deliberately delayed before opening my mouth. My information can't be read by the prophet. Isn't your information network a bit slow? The Weni Man frowned like his ego was hurt. Did you know I was coming? Yes. How? You probably came to grab this. I pulled out the Dakibi egg. The Weni Man's eyes shook. He knew what this egg contained. The soul is mine. At the same time, the great demon's lump started to swell ominously. I sent this soul here from another parallel dimension. I have ownership of the soul. He took one step closer while I stepped back. What are you talking about? The soul should have returned to me from the underworld. You intercepted it. I hope you return the soul before it is too late. Return? What was this bullshit? Is there a method to handle lost items in the star stream? The Weni Man still stayed in the distance as he stared at the egg with deep greed in his eyes. I looked down at the egg. The presence in this egg was the Shin Yu-sung from Yu Jong-hyuk's 41st regression. In a sense, the great demon of the horizon was right. The person who turned Shin Yu-sung into a disaster and sent her to this dimension was the Weni man in front of him. The wrinkles on the Weni man's face increased. If you want to play with words, let me ask her directly. This kid has her own free will. I didn't hesitate to tap on the surface of the egg and ask, Yu-sung, he is your master. What do you think? The egg shook steadily. I see. It is a no? Hey. I ignored the Weni man and asked the egg again. Then who are you? The egg shook even more. I nodded as if I understood. Yes, a soul can't belong to anyone. Just like no one can be the master of the story. No one could be the master of the story. A sharp look crossed the face of the Weni man who heard this. The great demon's eyes were spinning. He smiled like he found it interesting. How funny, Demon King of Salvation. Do you intend to negotiate with me now? I was caught. I smiled and replied, that's right. Okay. Your behavior so far has been interesting. However, if you want to negotiate, give me the egg first. Don't you know what a negotiation is? This is a problem. I need this kid. You don't know the value of that egg. No, I know. The egg was glued tightly to my hand, like it didn't want to leave. I lightly patted the egg. Beings born from this egg can make a channel. Do you know what that means? It means I can broadcast outside the authority of the Bureau. The Weni man faintly shook at my words. His confused fingers were heading for his beard. I added, in other words, this egg has the power to make countless stories. Isn't that why you want this egg? The Weni man was extremely surprised and he was silent for a moment. It felt as if he was trying to search my heart. However, he couldn't find see inside me when even the great demon's eyes couldn't see anything. Are you going to rebel against the star stream? Rebel? Who knows? Does the Bureau manage all of the star stream? Sometimes a part is the same as the whole. I don't think that is true, but, okay. If it is an answer you want. The eyes of the Weni man were turning like a camera lens. I knew what he wanted, so I pointed to the night sky and deliberately spoke like a revolutionary. I will destroy the world of the fucking Dakibis. The face of the Weni man distorted. I knew what this creepy expression meant. This was his smile. I like it. It was simple to gain the favor of the Weni man. I just had to blame the Dakibis. The most widely known story about the great demons of the horizon, or the Weni man, was probably the story about the old man with a wen. It was a story we all heard at least once in our childhood. A good-hearted Weni man got rid of his growth thanks to the Dakibis, while a bad-hearted Weni man got on more lump of growth because of the Dakibis. I looked at the lump on the Weni man and asked, then are you on the good side or the bad side? Humans always wonder about it. There is no guarantee I will take your side just because I am good. Well, you have a lump, so you are naturally bad. That folktale has spread across the world. Stories handed down aren't always accurate. It is becoming increasingly clear that you are bad. The Weni man shook like he was having a seizure. According to Ways of Survival, the lump acted as a warehouse for storing stories. Countless tales inside that lump were waiting to find a new owner. The Weni man looked at his system window that shook like a pendulum and told me, you asked for two things. I nodded. One is to go back to the scenario. The other is to acquire a new incarnation body. That's right. The Weni man acted in places the Dakibis channels couldn't reach and played a role similar to the Starstream's black market trader. They got rewards for sending the exiles back to the scenario, and they also saved unique items that the channel couldn't obtain. Of course, the price was very expensive. I can help you with both. Okay, then help me. Give me the egg in return. No. Then I can't help. Damn, it was back to the start. It seemed that they were firmly attached to the Dakibi egg. I decided to firmly hammer in the nail. I told you, I can't give you the egg. You can't use it even if you take it. The kid will only listen to me. Don't tell me, the egg grew by eating your story? That's right. Mixing a Dakibi with your stories, you are a filthy person. Shut up. I'll give you something else. What can you give me? A story. Isn't it something you want in the first place? Only the stories were valuable in the star stream. Therefore, the Weni man received stories. You are very confident. What type of story can you give me? I'll show you. I opened the list of my stories. Plus. List of stories. King of a kingless world. Person who opposes the miracle. One who showed contempt for a streamer. One who hunted the king of disasters. One who killed an outer god. Demon king of salvation. Scylla allied forces. Bug slaughter. Plus. I never thought I would have collected so many stories. Of course, there were only 6 that were legendary grade and above, but it was a start. Perhaps I was the only one who had collected this number of stories by the 10th scenario. In fact, the Weni man showed a hint of admiration. I knew you were great, but this is really amazing. He didn't hesitate to admire every story, like a guest in a luxury store. In particular, his eyes were filled with a deep greed when he saw the legendary stories. The color of the lump was red, seeming to show his excitement. It won't be hard to replace the egg. Of course. Do I have to pick only one? For now. Of course, it depended on the value of the story. There were some I had no intention of trading all of them. That was equivalent to giving away everything that made me a constellation. Then the Weni man picked a story without hesitating. Then I will pick one who killed an outer god. Do you have no conscience? It is the only semi-myth that I have. The value of a semi-myth grade story couldn't be converted into coins. No matter how important the deal with the great demon of the horizon, I couldn't give him the semi-myth grade story. Moreover, one who killed an outer god would be useful when meeting another outer god. The Weni man smacked his lips like he knew he had made an excessive demand. Then this one isn't bad either. I will choose king of a kingless world. I shook my head. It is my birth story. I can't give it to you. I see. Then demon king of salvation. You want to give you what made me a full constellation? My status will be demoted. It is unfortunate. Then how about person who opposes the miracle? There is a place I have to use that later. I'm sorry. The dumbfounded Weni man stared at me with frustration. Then what story are you going to give me? I'll give you this. Scylla allied forces. It was a history grade story that I got from helping Lady of the Brocade sleep and the Scylla constellations. The Weni man's face wrinkled. Giving me that isn't worth anything. Wasn't this too much? The Lady of the Brocade sleep would shed tears if she heard this. It was a great story where Scylla joined hands with the Tang dynasty to hit at the Han ethnic group. Then how about bug slaughter? It is better than before, but it is still a common story. I'll give you both of them. If necessary, the other history grade stories as well. Can I take it that you have no intention of trading with me? Damn, he wasn't an idiot like Bai Hyung. Bai Hyung was the one who changed the compensation rate from 10% to 0%. I continued to hesitate and the Weni man smiled vaguely. I don't know how you are still holding on to your existence, but do you have enough time left? I could feel that my body temperature had dropped more than before. The interval between the fourth wall's words was gradually increasing. Your body is collapsing. I hadn't gained as much as I could from the Wenny man, and my existence was in a fairly precarious situation. This collapse would accelerate unless I returned to a scenario right away, or at least received a new body. The stupid Kim Dokja thought, damn, what story should I give him? I was feeling frustrated, so don't bother me at this time. At that moment, a story caught Kim Dokja's eyes. What caught my eyes, eh? I momentarily hesitated. Come to think of it, there was this story. Then how about this?